You are currently sitting in a quiet room while your thumb mindlessly flickers across a glowing screen searching for a spark. That tiny movement of your hand is actually a white flag of surrender in a war for your very own cognitive sovereignty. Your brain is actively lying to you about your potential by convincing you that your current state of comfort is permanent safety. Does the person you claim to be actually match the person who spent the last 4 hours scrolling through a digital void? There is a much more dangerous mental trap hidden beneath your daily fatigue that is waiting to dissolve your long-term ambition. We will eventually reveal the specific neurological mechanism that makes your goals feel heavy, while distraction feels light and effortless today. Every 2 minutes you spend in this state of passive consumption is another brick in a wall between you and success. Your focus is currently a leaking bucket that drains your life force before you can even begin to pour into yourself. Remember that specific project you abandoned last June because the initial wave of excitement suddenly turned into a cold stone wall? Feel the subtle tension in your shoulders right now, and acknowledge that your body is holding the stress of your inaction. This single habit of seeking easy dopamine is a slow poison that is quietly rotting your ability to solve complex life problems. If you continue down this path, your career health will likely begin to stagnate as your peers move into more demanding roles. The erosion of your professional drive will eventually lead to a crisis of identity where you no longer recognize your own face. This systemic collapse of your willpower represents the total loss of time and the ultimate tragedy of a life left completely unlived. Modern neuroscience suggests that your brain is not broken, but it is being systematically hacked by teams of highly paid engineers. You are living in a digital age designed to exploit your primitive survival instincts for the profit of a few large corporations. Evolution once rewarded our ancestors for seeking high-calorie food and conserving energy to survive the harsh winters of the past. Your ancient biology believes that scrolling through a feed is the same as gathering valuable information for your physical survival today. This mismatch between your prehistoric wiring and your modern environment creates a loop of seeking that never actually leads to satisfaction. Understanding the neurochemical process of the dopamine loop is the first step toward reclaiming the throne of your own conscious mind. Inside your brain lies a small cluster of neurons called the nucleus accumbens, which serves as your primary motivation engine. This engine is fueled by dopamine, but this chemical does not actually provide the pleasure you think it does today. Neuroscience suggests that dopamine is the molecule of wanting, rather than the molecule of having or experiencing true, lasting joy. It spikes the moment you anticipate a reward, which creates a frantic biological urge to keep searching and consuming more. Every time you swipe your finger across the screen, you are playing a digital slot machine with your own neurochemistry. When your brain receives too many easy dopamine hits, it begins a self-defense process known as cellular downregulation. Your brain literally removes dopamine receptors to protect itself from the overwhelming noise of constant hyper-stimulation and digital junk. This process is like turning down the volume on a speaker until the most beautiful music sounds like a faint whisper. Now you require twice the stimulation just to feel the same baseline level of interest in your daily life and work. This is why a complex book or a deep conversation suddenly feels painfully boring compared to a 10-second video clip. You are not actually losing your character or your discipline, but you are developing a physiological tolerance to your own lifestyle. The perfectionist procrastinator often waits for the perfect surge of dopamine before starting a task that never actually feels easy. Meanwhile, the reckless sprinter burns through their neural energy in one burst, then collapses into a week of total mental fog. Both of these archetypes are currently trapped in a cycle where effort feels like a punishment rather than a rewarding path. Your brain has been recalibrated to expect instant gratification, and real meaningful achievement simply cannot compete with that artificial speed. The beautiful reality of neuroplasticity means that what has been broken by distraction can be fixed through intentional behavioral change. Every choice you make today is either strengthening the neural pathways for discipline or reinforcing the dark pathways for distraction. You must stop viewing your current lack of focus as a personality trait and start seeing it as a biological misconfiguration. A dopamine detox is not about removing the chemical, but about removing the artificial sources that have hijacked your reward system. By turning down the dial of stimulation, you allow your brain to recalibrate what a normal level of satisfaction feels like. You must understand that for the first few days of this transition, you will likely feel incredibly restless and irritable. This sudden spike in anxiety is not a sign of failure, but a clear signal that your brain is beginning to heal. Your neurons are currently screaming for the hyper-stimulation they have grown to expect as a daily biological rite of passage. Most people give up at this exact moment because they interpret temporary withdrawal symptoms as a permanent loss of their happiness. If you can push through this initial discomfort, You will notice your dopamine receptors beginning to upregulate and become sensitive. Suddenly, the simple satisfaction of completing a small task or reading a physical book starts to feel genuinely rewarding once again. You are not becoming a different person, but you are finally returning to the baseline level of human drive and focus. You are remembering what it feels like to be driven by internal satisfaction, rather than being a slave to external noise. Most attempts at change fail because people rely on willpower alone, which is a finite and easily exhausted mental resource today. Your willpower is no match for a dopamine-starved brain that is frantically searching for a quick escape from quiet boredom. You must identify your highest sources of easy dopamine, such as social media scrolling or consuming high-calorie junk food daily. These activities provide massive neurochemical rewards for almost zero physical or mental effort, which creates a dangerous parasitic relationship today. Pick a time frame of 7 to 14 days to eliminate these specific triggers and force your mind to find new paths. You cannot simply remove these habits without replacing them with slower and more sustainable forms of human engagement and mental work. Nature abhors a vacuum, and your brain will fill the empty space with even deeper cravings if you do not act. Try reading a physical book or cooking a complex meal from scratch to engage your senses in a much slower rhythm. Go for a walk without your headphones and allow the natural world to recalibrate your sense of time and presence today. These activities will feel painfully slow at first because your reward system is still tuned to a frantic digital frequency. As you persist through the boredom, your brain learns that effort itself can be a precursor to a deep sense of pride. You are retraining your internal engine to value the process of the struggle as much as the final result of the work. There is a crucial distinction between fleeting pleasure and the deep, lasting satisfaction that comes from real human effort. Pleasure is immediate and passive, while satisfaction is delayed and must be earned through the fire of personal resistance today. Modern life bombards us with cheap pleasure but leaves our souls entirely empty of the satisfaction that builds true confidence. This is why you can spend an entire day being entertained and still feel a crushing sense of guilt tonight. Your brain received the chemical signal for pleasure, but it never registered the achievement signal required for psychological peace. A dopamine detox shifts your focus from being a passive consumer to becoming an active builder of your own life. Satisfaction actually produces a much more powerful and stable neurochemical cocktail than any notification could ever hope to provide. When you push through resistance, you trigger a release of serotonin and endorphins that create a deep sense of contentment. This is the feeling that elite athletes call a runner's high and what master creators feel after hours of work. You are currently strengthening the prefrontal cortex, which is the advanced part of the brain responsible for logic and control. Every time you choose the difficult path over the easy distraction, you are quite literally upgrading your internal operating system. Meanwhile, the primitive limbic system, which operates on pure impulse and emotion, begins to lose its dominant grip on you. Over time, this neurological shift changes your default setting so that discipline no longer feels like a constant uphill battle. This is what high performers mean when they say that discipline eventually becomes a rewarding and self-sustaining habit today. You are not forcing yourself to be productive, but you are allowing your brain to prefer the path of meaning. After a proper detox, you will notice your attention span expanding as you regain the ability to focus for hours. Things that used to bore you within minutes will now hold your focus because your mind is no longer frantic. You will experience a clarity of thought that has been missing for years while you were drowning in digital noise. Decisions will become faster and more decisive because you are no longer constantly seeking external validation from a glowing screen. You will start feeling a genuine excitement about chores and projects that used to feel like a heavy emotional burden. You must accept the harsh reality that your brain will always try to drift back toward the easiest possible rewards. This natural tendency is not a character flaw, but a biological feature that requires constant and intentional environment design today. If your phone is the first thing you see every morning, you have already lost the battle for your attention. You need to create physical barriers between yourself and the distractions that currently hold your potential hostage every single day. Place your phone in another room while you work and use website blockers to protect your mental focus from drifting. Design your life so that meaningful satisfaction is easy to start, while empty pleasure is difficult and inconvenient to access. There is also a powerful social component because the people around you are constantly influencing your internal dopamine baseline levels. If everyone in your circle values instant gratification, you will find it nearly impossible to maintain your own personal discipline. Seek out communities and accountability partners who prioritize deep work and value the slow grind of long-term personal growth. Your brain is shaped not only by what you do, but also by the quality of the people you choose. From your current hijack state, discipline likely seems like a miserable path of endless restriction and painful self-denial today. But from the perspective of a recalibrated mind, discipline is the only path that leads to true, lasting emotional freedom. Distraction leaves you feeling empty and anxious, while discipline leaves you feeling capable and in total control of your destiny. True freedom is having a brain that works for you, rather than a mind that is constantly working against you. You are reclaiming your agency from the algorithms and engineers who have been harvesting your time for their own profit. This process of rewiring never truly ends because every moment is a fresh choice between growth and invisible mental decay. Do not just watch this video and move on because that is exactly what the old version of you would do. Identify the single highest source of empty dopamine in your life and commit to removing it for 7 full days. Notice what fills the empty space as you begin to trust that permanent transformation is waiting on the other side. Your brain is ready to be rewired, and the only remaining question is whether you are finally ready to do it.